Afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy to have our Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens here with us as usual, and also our great Council President Helen Hudson. Helen, thanks for joining us. I want to thank you and your colleagues for the continued use of the chambers for our weekly briefings. And just a couple quick thoughts to share before we go over the agenda and jump into it. Today we opened, yesterday we opened Thorndon Park Pool and Onondaga Park Pool. And that was a special day because, as we know, it was not easy, but thanks to the generosity of our constituents, of our community, we have 2 more pools to swim in this summer. So, of course, we had Kirk and Schiller open a couple weeks ago. Now Onondaga and Thorndon are open, and the city just feels a little more normal because of it. So happy to have, as we head into another heat wave, happy to have some more options to stay cool for our kids and our families. Want to thank also the Syracuse Parks Conservancy for their partnership. Good. It's a good story. Deputy Mayor and I earlier today got to welcome 26 new officers into the Syracuse Police Department. And I think it's safe to say that this is really an extraordinary time to go into that line of work. But I'll tell you, hearing them speak, they know exactly what they signed up for. And if anything, I think recent events have motivated them. And what struck me when one of the candidates or one of the new officers spoke, when asked why they all decided to become police officers, they all had the same answer. And it wasn't to fight bad guys, it was to help people. And that really struck me, that's what was the motivating factor for these new officers. And again, I think going through the academy in this really unprecedented time in the middle of the pandemic, and watching the protests and listening to what the protesters are saying, I think that in some ways they're going in more equipped than anyone before them, and with their eyes wide open. And I'm really hopeful for these officers and for the Syracuse Police Department, and I'm grateful for their willingness to serve. With that, we will jump into the formal agenda. Just to go through it real quick, we'll go over the COVID-19 data as we always do. We'll cover our CompStat weekly crime data. We'll touch on city finances. We'll give an update on the census. Deputy Mayor is going to talk about our financial empowerment centers, and then we'll finish out with an overview of our outdoor dining in Armory Square that we started last week, continues into this weekend, and then of course we'll open it up for questions. As for the COVID numbers, as of July 23rd, we have 1,757 cases in the city of Syracuse. That's up 40 cases since last week. It's a 2.3% increase. The prior week increase was 3.1%, so that's a good number, a good percentage to see coming down. Recoveries 1,545. That's up 60 in a week, and that's a 4% increase in a week in recoveries. So recoveries continue to outpace new cases. That's exactly what we want to see, and it continues. I want to remind everyone that, as usual, we are testing today at the Syracuse Community Health Center until 5 o'clock p.m., and tomorrow, Saturday, also at the Community Health Center from 9 to 5. We've been showing the early warning monitoring dashboard that the state oversees, and that's become an increasingly helpful tool for us, not just to monitor our progress currently, but to really forecast going forward and to be ready if we see certain trends emerge. Right now the trends are really good. So if you look at the dashboard, and you can see it behind me, right now the percentage of positive tests per day is at 0.8%. That's the lowest it's been since March. So that's great. We want to see it continue. And as we've said from the beginning, now's not the time to let our guard down. We've gotten here because we've been doing the right things. We've been wearing our masks. We've been keeping our social distance. We've been washing our hands, and we've been increasingly getting tested. So we need to continue to do that. But if we do, it bodes well for the future. We are continuing to monitor our business affirmations as businesses get open back up. We're up to 650 city businesses that have affirmed through the state's process, and that's up 3.3% over last week. Look at the crime data. It's good overall. We are at right now a 10% overall decrease in crime year over year. Last week we were at 8% decrease. So that number and that trend is headed in the right direction. Property crime has been helping to drive that number. We're at 13% below last year with overall property crime. Violent crime, which has been a challenge and typically is, especially this time of year, is at 0% right now. If you dig a little bit into those numbers, you can see where we're particularly challenged on both violent and property crime. For violent crime, it's aggravated assaults. And those are the ones that get the headlines, which understandably make people feel less safe. But I think that there's a perception that that crime is going up when again overall it is going down. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on that, especially the aggravated assaults. And on the property crime side, burglaries are a big problem. 36% increase in burglaries. So we want to be upfront and focused on those numbers that are high, but we also, in order to tell the full story, we need to acknowledge the overall numbers are down. So we're gonna hope that continues and work to make sure it does. Okay, just to touch on city finances briefly. We've talked a lot about it, and for good reason. COVID has been devastating to city finances, municipal finances in general, city, county, state, and we've been proactive in addressing that to the extent we can control it. We've talked about the voluntary leave program. We've talked about the over 104 employees that we have on unpaid leave right now. The next step in the process that we've talked a little bit about is our early retirement program. So we are introducing a voluntary retirement incentive program for eligible employees. And when we weigh pros and cons of taking certain cost mitigating measures, the pro or the benefit to an early retirement program is it's less harmful to employees. It is voluntary. So that's the good news. The bad news is there's a lot of institutional knowledge in this building, and when you conduct voluntary retirement programs, you lose a lot of that institutional knowledge. There's a brain drain that happens in City Hall and city government. So we don't take that lightly. That's going to present a challenge, but we're doing it because we have to, and we need to the extent we can, control our own fiscal destiny. So we anticipate that early retirement program is going to save us about $3 million this year and save us another $3 million next year. It's a long way to the $25 million that we think that we might need to save, but it's an important next step. So the next step in the retirement program process is it goes to the Common Council in August. We've been working with them very closely on this, and we look forward to advancing it. But as I said, while we're doing everything we can within our control, this is all not within our control. And we know that ultimately it's the federal government that has the ability to mitigate the negative financial impact on us. And we're at a really critical time. The Senate is currently considering their proposal. The House, of course, has already voted, and a big thank you to the House members that voted for a package that did include local and state aid. We need the Senate, and specifically the Senate Republican majority, to do the same, and it's not looking promising right now. Senators Schumer and Gillibrand have been rock solid from day one and continue to be, and we appreciate their leadership. But this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is not a partisan issue. We have had essential workers in city government that have been working every day throughout this pandemic, taking care of our constituents. And they have helped us, and it is now time for us to help them get through this difficult time. Again, I talked about what we think we might have to do in terms of additional cost mitigating measures, but if the federal government, and again, specifically the Senate majority and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, step up, things will, we think, we'll be able to get back to where we were pre-COVID, which was on a path to fiscal sustainability, which was economic revitalization. We were absolutely headed in the right direction. It's really up to the Senate majority to determine whether or not that was a pause in our path to fiscal sustainability, to economic revitalization, or if they're going to push us backwards in the wrong direction. I probably said more than I should have because I've said it. I've said the same thing now for a long time. So I brought in someone who is much more eloquent and tends to. She has a way with words, and sometimes I'm a little bit too judicious and diplomatic in the way I say things, and our council president gives it to everyone straight. So I'm calling in the big guns here, and I'd like to turn it over to Council President Helen Hudson to reiterate the message that the council, I know, feels very strongly about.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to reiterate everything you just said because it's imperative right now. Because we know, as you said, not by no fault of our own, that we're at a crossroads. And I'm just going to call on the Senate majority to let's not do party politics, because right now this is about human beings. These are your constituents that you're charged. It's your charge to represent, and we're asking that you actually vote the right way and ensure that we're whole as cities and across the country. I know that it's not just a Syracuse issue, it's countrywide, but my concern is Syracuse. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna put a little analogy with it. You know how as a parent, you're not gonna let your child starve. Well, the federal government is our parent, and we're asking the federal government to take care of their responsibilities and feed us. Do not let us starve under your watch.
Thank you, Helen. Appreciate your partnership and your leadership, and we're going to continue this fight. It is not over yet. Okay, a few more updates. Census, again, very directly tied to federal aid. We know the more accurate count we get for the census, the better position we are to get the federal resources we need to take care of our constituents. I've talked about my frustration with the slowing pace of the self-response rate in Syracuse. As of the 24th, as of today, we are at 49.5% self-response rate. Last week we were at 49.3%, so improvement, albeit slight. It is a slightly bigger jump up than we had seen in the past couple weeks. So while I appreciate that, it's nowhere near where it needs to be. It does continue to be right around where our upstate counterparts are. We all seem to be stuck below 50%. Buffalo's at 49.6%, Rochester's at 47.8%, and Albany's at 49.9%. We need to keep it up. And on that note, next week we are heading into what we are calling Census Push Week. So there's a map behind me, and it's color-coded, and anywhere where you see yellow and orange, these are areas of big concerns to us. We know that as a city, Syracuse has a number of what are described as hard-to-count populations, as all cities do. And not surprisingly, many of those populations are located within those orange and yellow areas. So we are going to step it up, heading into our final push before people start knocking on doors. Door-to-door starts on August 11th. So we have between now and then to get that number up. If you don't want somebody knocking on your door, and during a pandemic, most of us don't, go fill out the census. All you have to do is go on 2020census.gov. At this point, anything that's come in the mail has probably been lost, so stop looking for it in your mailbox. Just go on 2020census.gov, fill out your census. Encourage your friends and family to fill out their census. We have a number of events planned next week to help encourage folks to fill out their census. Of course, we plan to do a lot more events. The pandemic has made that much more challenging, but we do have some events that we're planning. So next week, Wednesday, July 29th, we're going to be at Union Park. On Thursday, July 30th, we will be at the Creators Lounge down on the south side. Union Park, of course, is up on the north side. And then on Friday, July 31st, we will be at Skiddy Park on the west side. So again, around those areas that you see are yellow and orange. Come out to those events. Again, we'll be doing it safely, but we're going to be offering food and other community resources, trying to encourage people to fill out the census. We're also going to have mobile response questionnaire teams stationed at various locations next week. So these are teams that will actually help people fill out the census on the spot. We're going to have them at several Syracuse Housing Authority properties. We'll have teams at city libraries, at food distribution centers, and we're also conducting a blood drive here at City Hall Commons right next door on Monday, and we will have a mobile response questionnaire team there as well. So no excuses. Now's the time. Again, if you don't want somebody knocking on your door, fill out your census and encourage others to do so as well. I want to turn it over to the Deputy Mayor now. I often talk about our city's vision, to be a growing city that embraces diversity and creates opportunity for all. We just raised the Puerto Rican flag out front earlier this morning, and that is a visible way in which we embrace our community's diversity. But when we talk about opportunity for all, that's arguably one of the hardest parts of what we do. It's one thing it's hard enough to get investments where we need them, but it's even harder to make sure that those investments benefit everyone in our community. So there are a number of initiatives that we have to ensure that the opportunity that we do have in this community benefits everyone. And one of the more successful ones that we've had over the past year is the Syracuse Financial Empowerment Center. So I'm going to turn over to Deputy Mayor Owens to give us an update. 1 year into
1 year in.
FEC? All right,
1
Deputy
year
Mayor.
in. Thank you, Mayor. We are so proud of our Syracuse Financial Empowerment Center and its 1 year anniversary. The program provides free professional one-on-one financial counseling to city residents. In the first year, we served 467 unique clients, eliminated more than $600,000 of debt, created more than $300,000 of savings, and more than 100 clients now have at least 1 week's pay saved. That's a big deal, particularly in these uncertain times for individuals, for businesses, for governments financially. This success is due to a partnership with the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, and it's a national organization that works with administrations to improve financial stability for low to moderate income households. The purpose is to embed this opportunity within local government. And we can only do that through local partnerships. The Greater Syracuse Hope Initiative, the Allen Foundation, CNY Community Foundation, Home Headquarters, and United Way of Central New York, the Syracuse Community Credit Union, the Syracuse Federal Credit Union, and many other organizations were partners with us in this. I remember when we were on the steps announcing this a year ago in anticipation, and we have really been successful in this program. So much so that the Cities for Financial Empowerment is doubling down on Syracuse. Because of our success, the CFE Fund is increasing its investment in us, and we're proud today to announce that we will be provided $80,000 in additional funding to hire another full-time professional financial counselor for our city for the next year. They were especially impressed with us because of how we were able to incorporate our FEC and adjust to the needs of people, particularly during the pandemic. FEC is for everyone. It is free and confidential for Syracuse residents. There are no income limitations, although the national program looks to really help low and moderate income households. No one is turned away. If you need counseling or you need financial assistance or advice, you will be provided it to strengthen your financial stability. So make an appointment by going to syracusefec.org. There are so many testimonies to the success of people who thought that, give it a shot, but it really made a difference in their financial lives. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. really proud of our work at FEC. So thanks to you and all of our partners for getting us there. And that's just 1 year in. So this is, again, the purpose is for this to be a city service like any other we deliver. So we intend to deliver it for a long time and continue to help ensure opportunity for all in our city. So before we open it up to questions, just want to reflect on a week after our first endeavor over in Armory Square to close off Walton Street, which is something that people have been calling for a long time, but most recently during the pandemic, it's one of our most active and vibrant parts of our city, and it hasn't felt that way lately, which is the case with a lot of other parts of our community. But as restaurants have been able to open up and do so safely, we really wanted to do something to try to reinvigorate the neighborhood and bring some new life to it. And I think we accomplished that last week. So we closed down the 100 and 200 blocks of Walton Street and Armory Square. We had, I think it was 6 participating restaurants last week. I think we're up to 7 this week, where we opened up the streets for something other than cars, which is a novel concept, but something that we hope we can do more of. We had tables out. We had people enjoying the area, and we, importantly for the businesses, had some of the best business days for these businesses in a long time. So we're going to continue it at least through August. The streets are closed off as we speak. We actually were able to get a little fresh pavement down on the block where there were some little tripping hazards and other things. We wanted to make sure that everyone can fully enjoy themselves safely on the street. So encourage folks, if you're inclined to go out and you feel safe going out, please visit Armory Square, visit our local restaurants and businesses. They've been struggling like the rest of us throughout the pandemic, but everyone is taking the pandemic very seriously. My observations has been both with the community and the staff at these businesses. Everyone's doing the right things. They're wearing their masks. They're being safe. And so, for the time being, we're just going to have to figure out and learn how to coexist with this virus. And I think what you're seeing in Armory Square and other parts of the city is us doing that in a safe way. I want to reiterate that we don't want to stop in Armory Square. In Hanover Square, we have Genesee Street closed now, but any business district or any neighborhood in the city that would like to see this in their neighborhood, we welcome the opportunity. The term we've all been using lately is reimagine. This is an opportunity to reimagine our public right-of-way and how we use it to support different activities beyond just driving cars. So visit Armory Square, wear your mask, and again, if you want to do something similar in your neighborhood, let us know. Okay, with that, we will open it up to questions.
Mayor?
Yep.
The early retirement program, I would imagine that this isn't something you just decided, that you've had discussions with different people. Do you have an idea of the numbers of people that may take part in this, and roughly what are the savings that you're looking to get out of this?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I know we have over 200 eligible employees. I think we're anticipating somewhere in the range of half of them or so in order to achieve our goal for savings. Again, that number being around $3 million this year and $3 million next year. As far as the program, historically, it's been something that the state has offered, but in lieu of that, we thought that there was an opportunity for us to advance it on our own in partnership with the Common Council. There are some upfront costs to it, but again, it does achieve savings in the long run, and that's the goal here.
Hi, Mayor. Just moving to the call on the federal government, I know that you mentioned that the city, if we don't receive this federal funding, the city will have to make some cuts or do further harm to either residents or workers within the city. So I was just wondering if you can provide some more insight as to what that would potentially look like for Syracuse.
Sure. So, we've been taking it in steps and in phases. Again, it started with temporary unpaid leave for over 100 employees. We did a voluntary leave program following that that was met with limited success, and And the early retirement incentive is now the next step, the next phase in the process. All of those steps up to this point have been, certainly challenging, but and difficult, especially for those that have been impacted by the furloughs. But along the spectrum of difficult decisions, that they only get more difficult from here. So when we talk about where we go from here, we think that this early retirement program, that will, as we see that through the month of August, we'll have a good sense of where we stand after that. But right around Labor Day is a big time for us, because if we get past there and the federal government has not provided aid, that's when we're going to be looking at things like reducing capital expenditures, important equipment purchases, things that not only improve quality of life but allow us to deliver, enable us to deliver our services. We're going to have to look at service reductions, and with that, we're going to have to look at staff reductions. Again, right now, the steps that we've taken have been temporary, but in order to achieve the projected $25 million in savings that we think we would need to do without any federal aid, that cannot be done without reducing services and reducing staff. So we'd be looking at layoffs, and no department is immune from that. We've had conversations with every department as we've worked through different scenarios, but no department will be immune. It's the only way that we will get through this, other than if the federal government steps in and delivers aid.
So I guess just following that, obviously it's unpredictable when the federal government will step in and provide this funding that we need, but what should people be thinking, these city workers who might have their future totally on the line?
Yeah, I have been as open and transparent as I can be with our employees, and I make it a point to reinforce that they are a priority, and we're doing everything we can to protect them from being impacted by this. But they see what's going on. We're all experiencing it, so we're just trying to be open and honest with them. For everyone, whether you're a potentially impacted employee or you're a city taxpayer or a county taxpayer, because the county's facing these very same challenges. County Executive Big Man's been very vocal about that. Everyone should be reaching out to their fellow representatives, and beyond that, go right to Majority Leader McConnell. Everyone needs to be delivering that message. And again, this is not a political issue. It's not a party issue. Early on, you heard about these ridiculous, offensive terms, blue state bailout. We didn't need a bailout before COVID. We were projecting a $1.5 million surplus, and sadly, whereas some of the initial states that were hit hardest by COVID may have been, as ridiculous as the term is considered, blue states. That's not the case now. Again, this virus has no regard for party affiliation or geography. And so the federal government and the Senate just need to do what's right here. In terms of timing, we're trying to read the tea leaves. We're talking to our representatives and those that are observing what's happening in Washington. I think it's important to remember that the best thing that can happen for us right now is the Senate passes a bill that has state and local aid in it. If I was a betting person, do I think that that's going to happen? I don't think I'd take that bet. Senator McConnell has not given any indication that he has any appetite for that. So what I'm afraid we're going to end up with is a Senate bill that is woefully inadequate. But that's the next step in the process is you're going to have a $3 trillion bill that came out of the House, and sadly probably something closer to a $1 trillion bill out of the Senate. And I'm just speculating. We're all guessing here. And then you have to negotiate. Again, I'm heartened by our federal delegation and specifically Senator Schumer and Gillibrand, who have been unequivocal in their support for local and state aid. But we wouldn't have to sweat out the next month of negotiations if the Senate majority just did what they should be doing, which is supporting the essential workers that have supported us over the past few months.
Mayor, with the money so tight on the federal level, does this impact when we get body cameras?
Good question. The short answer is no. We've been able to secure the necessary resources to get very close to full body camera deployment among uniformed officers. We might have a little ways to go after this next procurement, but long term, we have to maintain our cameras. We have to maintain the technology behind them, and without, as long as we're in this pandemic and we're not seeing the same revenue that we were seeing, if the federal government doesn't step up, it's going to have a long-term impact on every department, including the police department. So the good news is, short-term, we think we have what we need to continue to build up our body camera program, but long-term, is a big question mark without federal help.
And in regards to the early retirement program, are you worried at all about maybe deprecating the police department, or is this an opportunity to kind of start shifting that funding to mental health care and other opportunities and organizations within the city?
Well, the early retirement program we're offering right now does not include sworn firefighters or police officers. That is a conversation we're having. They are in a different pension system, and it works a little bit differently. Frankly, we, at least as it relates to the police department, we haven't been able to keep up with the retirements as is without the incentive. Again, which is why we brought in a new class today. But again, it is something that we're talking about with both departments, and we're going to look at. Again, I have concerns about that impact on every department.
And one last question. Is there any update on the Columbus statue, any timeline you can give?
Right where we left off, we've appointed the action group. We expect that their first meeting will be in the first week of August, and we expect that their work will be done probably mid to late September.
Perfect. Thank you,
probably,
Mayor.
or early October. It'll be right around the beginning of fall.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Chris?
The Attorney General has opened an investigation into the Syracuse Police Department. It's my understanding that this started in March. Do you know whether there was a specific incident that led to that investigation?
I'm not aware of a specific incident, but as we've said before, we welcome the partnership of the Attorney General. We throughout the recent dialogue about police reform and police accountability, we've seen it as an opportunity to point to the reforms that this administration and specifically Chief Buckner has undertaken during his tenure. The Attorney General is an important partner for us, and we are working closely with them and sharing much of the same information that we're sharing with the community. We want to be open and transparent, and as we go through this process.
Have you been interviewed by her or by anybody in her office?
I have not.
Okay. Somewhat related, we had a report earlier this week about CRB has made an allegation that there are missing internal affairs cases in the police department. Were you aware of those prior to that becoming public?
I have been aware that we've had significant shortcomings in our Office of Professional Standards. Again, we haven't shied away from that point. That was one of the first things that Chief Buckner identified when he came into the job, was that office needed significant improvement. And again, consistent with all the other reform measures, Chief Buckner was proactive in dealing with that. So he's changed the leadership in that office. He's increased staffing, and part of that is to make up for past shortcomings. So, in terms of the specific records, I know that the police department has asked the CRB for those records. In terms of what happened to them, I can't speak to that, and I don't think it's productive to speculate or to accuse. We know that OPS needs to do better, and I believe they are doing better with new leadership and new resources.
Mayor, if I may, I would also add that it's important to note that at the moment of recognizing that those records needed to be identified, Chief Buckner immediately responded and made sure that those records were secured again from the CRB.
Last thing, on the right to know law, there's been some back and forth this week, I think, between your administration and the council on how to move forward with this, how to implement it. My understanding is that the city attorney does not believe it's the council's place to fully legislate this, and that it should be a policy matter. And there's some concern that if the council does go forward with this legislatively, that you would have the opportunity to block it. Will you have any plan if the council does install this by law to block any parts of the right to know legislation?
So I have talked to Council President Hudson about right to know, talked to Council President Pro Tem Bay about right to know, and I think the important thing is that when we all came here, when I issued my executive order, we were all in full agreement that we wanted to implement right to know. That's the most important thing. Is that the change happens. Corporation Counsel, which represents both the administration and the council, took the opinion based on their interpretation of the charter, which I had no preconceived notion or preference in. That's their job. They took the position that there were certain elements of what was proposed in the form of the right to know legislation that fell under executive jurisdiction and some that fell under legislative. That's the position they've taken, the council, and I certainly won't speak for them, and Helen can if she wants. It's up to them as to whether or not they want to accept that legal counsel or seek out their own. We know that they have that option now in the form of another attorney. In terms of what actions the council takes, that's up to them. Once they take that action, we'll figure out where we go from there. But I'm not overly concerned because we want the same outcome here. So while we may not be in full agreement of how we get there, we're going to get there, and we'll work out the details.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay. Happy Friday. Oh, one more. False alarm.
Helen, last week the deputy mayor outlined the 9 demands and the response from the city. 7 of them, Sharon, were the ones that the city could actually do. 2 of them were things that the council had to deal with. I think one of them was on...
One was council, one was school.
Okay, so the one on the council, have you looked over that one demand and your thoughts on that one? Was that Citizens Review Board?
CRB, yes, and we're looking over all of the demands that have to do with CRB. We're still working on legislatively looking at all of the demands that talks about police accountability. So we're still working on that. As the mayor stated, we have hired an attorney. We're giving him an opportunity to look over all of this before he presents it back to us, no later than Monday, I hope, and we'll be able to move forward. Because we are all on the same page. We all want the same results. How we get to them, sometimes we all got to take a different path. So that's what we're looking at.
Hello again. So last week
See what you're starting to do here. Go ahead.
So last week we talked
for.
a little bit about having a Spark and the People's Coalition involved in this process. Have you guys heard a formal response from them? They haven't released a press release, but they are holding a panel tonight. Have you had any discussion since you released the response?
I have not checked my email today,
Okay.
but I had, as far as I know, up to today, I have not received a response.
Okay.
Chris?
Last one, we'll go off topic. Do these, there were the regional control groups established early on in this COVID response. Do those still exist? Are you guys still meeting?
We have calls every day with not recently on the weekends, but every weekday we have the regional control room calls. It's an opportunity to raise issues that our constituents raise with us. As you can imagine, the topics lately have been focused around the industries that are not yet open up. A lot of discussions around gyms, movie theaters, entertainment, wedding venues. And then I think increasingly as we head into the fall, we're talking about schools. Yeah, I had a feeling.
For the public who might be tuning into this, the hiring of 26 new officers might appear as a contradiction to that 7th demand, I believe, which is reallocating some resources to different services. What do you have to say to that? Because I think on the surface it can look a little contradictory.
So it's completely consistent with our approach to staffing the police department, and I think that I think it's worth noting that the academy started in January. It doesn't happen overnight, but as I've said from the beginning on the topic of defunding the police, which does mean different things to different people, but as I understand it, what my position is, based on what we're asking the police department to do right now, they are budgeted appropriately. I mean, we just went through a budgeting process just a couple months ago. I welcome, and I know the chief welcomes, the opportunity to reevaluate and reimagine what policing looks like in the city of Syracuse. And we've committed to doing that in the executive order and in our response to those demands. And if or when we identify functions and responsibilities that we currently ask of the police department, that we decide to shift away from the police department, then I think it's appropriate to talk about shifting resources away from the police department. So again, that process, we've committed to it. It's underway, and in the meantime, we welcome the new recruits in, and we have a job to do to continue to keep the city safe, and it's one that I take very seriously. I know our police officers do as well, and I appreciate that.
I know that Chris asked the question if there was a single incident that triggered the AG's investigation into the department. Do you know the reason why the investigation started?
I'm not aware of a specific incident that triggered their interest.
Or was it an overall, was it not a specific incident, but just general issues?
Yeah, we haven't been made aware of specific issues that they're looking at. We have they're looking at policies, procedures, things like that, policies and practices, but we haven't been given specific examples.
What's most important is we're full in to the investigation to see where it takes us and where we can improve our police force.
Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Be safe.